to my channel and welcome to today's video. In this video, I'm going to give you 10 things we do spend money on as a frugal homeschooling family. As a little disclaimer, when we buy these items and spend money on them, we will never go into debt to do so. So if we cannot afford them, we will not buy them, or we will take money out of savings, or we will save up for the particular item. I'm going to start with number one. One area in our house that we do spend money on is home improvements and renovations. We bought our ex-council house about 3 years ago and it was a fixer-upper. The people that lived here previously had lived here since it was built in, I think, 1955. And they had, although it was so clean and immaculate, they had not done anything to the house, to the original shell of the house, since I would say the late 70s, early 80s. It was very dated. Maybe I can try and put in a few pictures of what the house used to look like. And then they did the little extension in 2005, and that's probably the most recent they did stuff to the house was 2005. He moved in 2019, sorry, some of the books fell from the bookshelf and that made me jump. So we think they did a lot of the work themselves and perhaps a bit more cheaply because things aren't done, I would say, properly. But number one is home improvements and renovations. We have spent a fair bit of money on doing the house up. We have replastered, redone the boiler, sunk in all of the gas and central heating into the walls, had it plastered over, got new windows, we've got shutters on the windows. What else did we have done? We've had a lot done, I can't remember. We've obviously done the floors. We've just done a little DIY on the kitchen, which by the time this video is out, you should be able to watch that. So I'll probably link that somewhere where you can watch the little DIY kitchen renovation we've done. We did the upstairs bathroom. We've felt like we've done a lot, and we still have so much left to do. Like, I'm in the playroom currently. We haven't even touched this since moving in, really, because this is the extension part of the house, and we eventually want to extend next to this to extend it out and match the current extension. The reason we are happy spending money on home improvements and renovations is because this potentially is going to be our forever home, so we want to invest in it to make it exactly how we want it. We've put in the money to do that, and we have not only made that money back, if we sold it now, we've made nearly 100 grand on this house after how much we've put into it as well. So it's really been worth it. We're really happy to spend the money on it. And we like to make old things new anyway. We like to keep things and look after them. And our house is like our little haven. My husband and I both agree that we are happy to spend money on doing stuff in the house because we spend a lot of our time here and it feels very calming, and we like our house the way we like it. That, for me, is a really important form of self-care, is having a house that I'm very comfortable in. I'm not fussed about going to the spa or anything like that, but having a house that I enjoy looking at really helps my mental health. So I'm happy spending money making it look how I want it to look. Our number two that we do spend money on is a kind of a little contrast to what I've said in one of my previous videos, but I will need to explain that, is appliances that we use every day. I'm not actually necessarily talking about the fridge freezer, the dishwasher, all of these things. We have got most of them secondhand, but we do tend to look for very good ones that are secondhand. We don't just look for any. And if we cannot find good ones secondhand, we will spend money on a good one that we know will last forever and we won't need to replace it. There are two items in particular that we have spent, I would say, a lot of money on. Like, thinking about how much money we've spent on this kind of makes me a bit like, oh, but it has been worth it for us. Them two things we use every single day without fail, and they need to work really well. One of them is the vacuum. We bought a Dyson vacuum 2 years ago, a handheld one, and I do not regret it, but I think it was about £600, which we saved up for and decided to do that. The second item that we have spent a ton of money on, in my opinion, is a blender. We were given a Vitamix blender from my grandmother back in 2016, I think. And it was secondhand, obviously, so she had that, I think, for quite a few years. I think about maybe 4 or 5 years, and she was upgrading to a newer model, and she said, hey, would you like it? And I was like, yes, please. Oh my goodness. Very pumped, because I never thought I'd be able to afford a Vitamix. After having that for a few weeks, we very quickly said, me and Joel spoke to each other and said, I don't think we would ever not have one of these again. We feel like it is worth spending that money on to get another one if it ever broke. So we're talking 5 years down the line. Unfortunately, it did break. It broke a couple of times. We're still in warranty. So we were actually able to send it off to get fixed for free a couple of times, which was amazing. But this last time, it wasn't in warranty. I think it was by this point about 10 years old. I've used it 3 or 4 times already today. I don't have a food processor. I don't have all of these other gadgets. I have my blender. So when that broke, we made the decision to invest and buy a brand new Vitamix because you do get the warranty again. We decided to take the plunge and buy a new one, and we just look after them. So although we spend a lot of money on these, we really do look after them. And when we get a bigger kitchen and do an extension at some point, we want to invest in a really big, good range oven because we cook, and I love cooking. We love feeding people. We like having people round to feed them, and a big oven to do that would be great. Which leads me on to my number 3 is we spend money on feeding people and entertaining. And I don't mean that as we buy takeaways, we go out for food or any of them things, but when we can plan, we know people are coming around and I've had the time to plan it, we are happy to spend a lot of money on feeding them people that are coming around. So we make loads of food, we buy loads of stuff in. Like, I want to be one of these people that when people come around, they know they're not gonna leave hungry, which probably has happened a few times because there's been times where last minute we've decided to have friends around and I've not been able to prep and buy loads of stuff for that. But generally when I know I'm having guests around and we know we're going to be eating as part of that, then we will buy loads of food, we'll prep loads of food, and we will spoil people rotten with loads of home cooked food, I feel. I hope my guests think that. I hope they don't think that I'm stingy on food because that's not what I want at all. But number 3 is I'm happy to spend money on feeding our guests and having people leave really satisfied and full. The 4th thing we are happy spending money on is our kids' birthday parties. I do not mean their presents. We are actually very frugal with the presents we get them. We tend to buy secondhand or find for free on free cycle pages of things that they've wanted, because we know my family and Joel's family will be buying them gifts, and we spend a lot of time and effort and money planning their birthday parties. Last year, my eldest had a Pokemon themed birthday party. We hired a magician, we hired a face painter, we had it at our house. I made the cake and we made loads of food. We got loads of decorations because I used to work in a party shop. I did all the decorations. And we probably spent about £350 on that party. For his 4th birthday is when we really started it. And he remembers them all. I want my kids to remember these amazing birthday parties. And I'm so happy that if we have the money and we get to save up for it for the whole year, we are happy to spend money on their birthdays because they'll remember it and it will be a precious memory, I feel. And it's coming up to my youngest son's 4th birthday in a few months, and this is his first proper party and we are going to go all out, so I'm excited about planning that. And I love planning these parties too, so it's mostly for them, but it's a little bit for me too. My 5th thing that we as a family are happy spending money on is our kids' activities, hobbies, clubs. Again, we can only do so much because we are a 1-income household. We delegate. If you've watched my budget video, how I budget, you see that we delegate a specific amount of money to be able to pay for our kids' clubs and activities and experiences and days out. We're hoping in the next few years that we'll have a bit more expendable cash so that we can start Spanish lessons and music lessons because they are very expensive and we currently cannot afford that. But when we have that more expendable cash, then we were happy not really having a limit on the amount of money we spend on the kids' activities, as long as it doesn't go into debt and we have everything else paid for. If there are things that they want to do, we want to be able to try and equip them to enjoy that and learn and do things, especially as a home educating family. There are a few things that you're going to miss from not going to school, so if we can send them to clubs to learn these things and to experience them, then that's great to us. The 6th thing that we are willing to spend money on is board games. We tend to use a lot of board games as a home educating family, and we have a lot of friends around that come over to play board games. We have a lot of board games, and we're willing to spend money on board games that we want and think will be beneficial to our family. Generally speaking, I tend to try and look for them secondhand still, but if we can't find them or there's not much different in price, then we will, when we have the money, buy the board games because we know they'll last a lifetime. But board games, I feel, is something that it's gonna get used. There's gonna be a use for them. The kids will play them when we have friends around, we can play it. I'm happy to spend money on something that we know is gonna get used and we're gonna look after. Number 7 is we are happy to spend money on nice artwork. My husband tend to go to art galleries quite a lot because we like looking around them. If we ever see a piece that makes us just both together at the same time feel something and fills us with joy and we really like it, we would be willing to spend a lot of money on that. Not saying that I have. We've got a few pieces around the house. I think I've got one piece that Joel got me for Christmas, which it was a beautiful art piece. It was meant to be quite a lot of money, but it was on a random sale. It was the only one they had left, and I think it was about £180, which for art is really cheap, like an original piece. It was insanely cheap for what it was, but I just fell in love with it, so he bought that for me. But when we have a more expendable income and maybe a bit more money in our general savings account, and where we can just maybe drop a few £100 on just a painting, then we would be willing to do that. Because again, like I said, with the home renovation and improvements, I feel like home decor is a similar one for us. If it fills us with joy, it makes us happy in our home, and it's something we can treasure and look after for a really long time. If we find a piece that we want and we can save up to buy it, we would be willing to spend a fair bit of money on artwork. Number 8 is, again, I've said in previous videos that we don't spend money on this, but I mean excess of this. So one thing we do spend money on is shoes. We don't spend money on shoes that we don't need. So I will only ever need 5 pairs of shoes. I have my welly boots, my sandals, my Doc Martens, a pair of trainers, and a pair of heels. If I break one of them and I need to replace them, then I will. Most of the time I will try and look secondhand for what I need to replace it, but if I can't, I'm willing to spend more money on one that I really like that will last me for ages. So like my sandals, I've got a pair of Quarter Life rope sandals that I bought. I think I bought my first pair about 5 years ago, and I love them so much. I do not like wearing shoes normally. I like wearing sandals or barefoot. So in the summer, I just wear this one pair of sandals. They're amazing. I love them. My first pair broke and just was overused after the first 3 years. I straight away bought another pair because I loved them so much. They're not extremely expensive, but they weren't cheap. They weren't just like Primark shoes. I think they're about £50 or £60 for the pair. Also my Doc Marten boots, I actually bought second hand 3 years ago, and they seem, if I just gave them a good clean, they would still look new to me. I think they have been such a good investment. But the same with Joel. He has a pair of Converse. When they broke, he was desperately looking for the same pair again second hand, and he couldn't find them, so he did invest and spend I think £70 on a new pair of them because he loves them so much. But we look after them, so although we've spent a lot of money on them, we look after them and they do last us a really long time. So we're happy to spend extra on shoes. Number 9 is perfumes and aftershaves. And I don't mean excess perfumes and aftershaves. When I say we spend money on that, it means we buy one perfume or one aftershave that we know we like. We'll spend a lot of money on a really nice one, but that will last us for a year or two. So Joel bought me a bottle of Lush perfume for Christmas in 2020. So that's nearly 2 years old. It's nearly ran out, to be fair, so I feel like I'm probably in need of another one. But that I think was £60 or £70 for the big bottle, maybe a bit more, I don't know. But it's lasted me 2 years. It's the only perfume I have and I love it. And also finding vegan and cruelty-free perfumes can be quite tricky. Also for Christmas this year, bought him some aftershave. I think I got him a big bottle. It was about £50 or £60 again. and that should last him for a couple of years. But again, it's the only one he has. We're not buying £10 bottles of perfume. We're buying really nice ones that we love the smell of. That brings us to our number 10. A few years ago, we invested in a couple of really good cameras. I was doing photography 4 or 5 years ago, and we wanted to invest in it, and we bought some really good ones to begin with. But we're really glad we did invest in them to begin with, because now we've got so many lovely family photos that we've been able to take over the last 5 years. And I think if our cameras were to break again, we would spend that money on buying cameras again. That is the 10 things we do spend money on as a frugal family. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give it a like and subscribe, and leave me a comment on what video you would like to see. I'm gonna see you in the next video. Bye friends!